Hello, my friends, and welcome again to another episode of Mastering the edTPA. In video 3, we're going to talk about the resources you can use to help you complete the edTPA. Now, to be clear, today is not going to involve an exhaustive accounting of all of the resources. Today, what I'm going to do is introduce you to just a few of them, because later on in upcoming videos, I will be talking about them as if you know what they are. So, I thought a short video to introduce them to you would not be out of place. And just as a reminder, this is the cycle that we're going on. We've covered the why. Why do we do the edTPA? And we've talked a little tiny bit about the what. Today, as we talk about the resources, this is still part of the what. But upcoming videos will focus on the different tasks specifically. And I will, like I said, be referencing these resources. So I want you to know what they are. But this video is not going to give you a great deal of information or much detail. This is just an overview. So let's begin. There are 6 different resources that you are going to draw on extensively when you are completing your edTPA. The first is a document called Making Good Choices. And this will be made available to you in the course that you are taking, with which this video is aligned. And the Making Good Choices document is the same for all endorsements except for special education. So if you are doing elementary math or elementary literacy or secondary science or fine and performing arts, you will all look at the same Making Good Choices document. However, if you are doing special education, you have a specific document for you, and it actually says Making Good Choices in Special Education. So just make sure you're looking at the proper document. The second one is called the edTPA Handbook. This is the document that most people turn to first because it contains all of the prompts, the directions for the questions you're supposed to answer, the directions for all of the documents you're supposed to collect and create, how long they're supposed to be, etc., etc. And these are endorsement specific. So, for example, if you're doing elementary math and your good friend is doing elementary literacy, you are going to have 2 different handbooks that are going, in some cases, to have 2 different sets of rules. We will talk more about that in just a little bit. The third type of document you're going to have is called the edTPA Rubric Level Progressions. These 2 are endorsement specific, so they are specific to your endorsement. These are, in my estimation, perhaps the most valuable document you're going to have. And we are going to spend a lot of time looking at these coming up. But essentially what these do is these take each of the 15 rubrics that we talked about in the last video, and they go into great depth. What if 3 is the standard? What does a 2 look like? What would you have to specifically do to score a 2 instead of a 3? Or what would you have to do to score a 4 instead of a 3? They are very specific, and we will spend a lot of time looking at those. This next kind is called the Academic Language Document. This is probably the one you'll look at the least. We will have an entire video devoted to academic language because I find the document sometimes ends up being more confusing than it is helpful. All of these documents, by the way, are created by Pearson. The 5th kind is the edTPA templates, and all these are Word templates that are already pre-filled with all of the prompts for your endorsement and formatted in the way that Pearson wants them to be formatted. So all you have to do is type in your responses, and so it's pre-formatted for you. So it's not supporting in terms of helping you understand things or giving you information, but it is supporting from a logistical standpoint of already having it formatted properly. And then finally, which we'll talk about at the end, is your brain and your experience, which is hands down the most important resource that you have available to you. And I'll come back to that. Let's go into a little bit more detail about each one of these. The Making Good Choices document, and you can see here this is a screenshot off of the cover. The Making Good Choices document is a short overview of what the edTPA is, how to use, what the different tasks are looking for, what the different kind of files are, and then some key vocabulary terms or glossary terms. I cannot stress highly enough that you start your journey into edTPA by looking at and reading this document. It will answer a lot of questions. It just gives a big picture overview, but it provides a very helpful overview so that you understand what it is that you're being asked to do. Again, for special education, there is a separate, different document, but everyone else, yours will look like this. The edTPA handbook. This is the cover of the Elementary Mathematics handbook. I use elementary mathematics as my go-to example because most of our candidates in Northwest, and indeed most candidates in this state, this is it's the most commonly chosen edTPA endorsement. So I use this one as an example. Yours will look different, right? It would say elementary literacy for Washington or secondary math for Washington or something to that effect. The assessment handbook gives an overview quickly of the purposes of the edTPA, and then it walks through each task specifically. It explains in a page or two, here's what the task is asking you to do. It goes into great detail about some of the logistical things, this many files that can only be this long, here's the font we want you to use, or if it's a video file, here's the format you need to use, here's how long it can be. It gives you some watch out for it, and then it has all of the actual prompts that you will be asked in your commentary for each task. And at the end of each task, it will have short versions of the rubrics. So for task 1, it will have a short version of rubric 1, rubric 2, rubric 3, rubric 4, and rubric 5. Longer versions of those can be found when you look at the rubric level progressions. One of the best parts about the handbook is at the very end. There is a glossary at the end of each handbook where all of the terms that they use are defined. So, for example, in the elementary math handbook, you're going to have prompts about supporting mathematical reasoning and how have you supported mathematical reasoning for your students. If you're scratching your head saying, what do they mean by mathematical reasoning? You can go to the glossary at the end of the handbook and they will define their terms. This is a resource that is underutilized, and I cannot stress highly enough how valuable it can be. When we start looking at task 1, we will actually look at examples from the handbook. The edTPA rubric level progressions. As I said earlier, the rubric level progressions spend 2 or 3 pages on each rubric going into great detail about what makes a 3 a 3, or what makes a 4 different from a 3, or a 2 different from a 3. The rubric level progressions also tell you, for rubric 1, which is part of task 1, what exactly are we looking at? Well, we're looking at prompt number 1 in the commentary, and we're also looking at the context for learning document, and we're looking at the lesson plans you uploaded. It tells you exactly what you're being looked at. So as you start to plan out how you're going to spend your time on the edTPA, you don't have to wonder, well, gosh, how much time do I spend on this prompt? You can look at the rubric level progressions, figure out where that prompt is being assessed. And if that prompt is the sole place that, say, rubric 2 is being assessed, you need to spend a lot of time on it. But if rubric 2 is actually being assessed over the course of 5 different prompts, then you don't have to be perfect on every single one of those. You have 5 prompts to make your case then for that rubric. So we will actually do an example of this in an upcoming video. But this is maybe the most strategic document you could use in terms of helping you to write things in such a way that will get to the higher scoring responses. And this is not to be gaming the system or anything like that. Instead, this is making sure that you are actually answering the questions in ways that they want you to answer them. And these rubric level progressions were designed to be used on the back end for you to interpret your score, but I find them to be as valuable, if not more valuable, on the front end. The academic language documents. Academic language, which we will talk more about later on, is divided into 4 categories: function, vocabulary, discourse, and syntax. As I said earlier, I believe that this document is perhaps the least helpful of all of them, and I will have a separate video devoted simply to the academic language and the language demands so that you understand what they're asking for. Nevertheless, this document does exist, and it does provide some endorsement-specific examples of what they're looking for. The edTPA templates look like this. So this is the Task 2 instruction commentary template for elementary math. And you can see it gives you, at the top, tells you how long it can be. It gives you the times in which you're able to upload additional pages. And then where you see each one of those brackets, that's where you would type in your responses. But these prompts are the actual prompts for Task 2, or there's some of them, they're not all of them. And the brackets are where you would type in your spaces. These are the same prompts you would find in the handbook. It's just the handbook, there's not any space for you to answer them. The template allows you to start typing in your answers so you can save your work. And this is, these templates are what you would actually upload as you submit your edTPA. And then finally, and I cannot stress this enough, most importantly, your brain and your experience. The edTPA is not my assessment. It is not your mentor teacher's assessment. It is not your friend's assessment. It is your assessment. And ultimately, although we can guide you and we can help you understand what you're doing, you are the one who has to make the decisions about the edTPA. And you are capable of doing that. There are going to be times in which you are going to feel like a fish out of water or in over your head or whatever metaphor you want to use. But I guarantee you, by the end of our program, we will have taught you how to think in this way. And the experience you will have developed over the time in the classroom, you will have the experience to demonstrate what they want you to demonstrate. You and your thinking and your decision making, that you are the most important resource for the edTPA. And if you're looking for the magic resource that will come in and save you if you get stuck, it doesn't exist. There is no such thing. The only thing that is going to get you out of a jam is your ability to think out of it. We will help you, we will prompt you, we will sit with you and ask you questions, but this is your task, and you can do it. So I am always going to push you back. What do you think? What decision would you make? What have you learned about this in your coursework that could inform what you're doing now? As the edTPA coordinator, I will work with almost all of you at some point in time in one-on-one in supporting you in the edTPA, and I will keep pushing this back to you. What do you already know? And believe me, you know a lot. So next up, I'm going to have a video that introduces Task 1 in much more detail. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.